The gap between the upper class and middle class isn't just growing, it's accelerating. What used to be a slow divide has now turned into a massive financial gap that feels impossible to cross. The cost of living keeps rising, wages struggle to keep up, and saving money no longer guarantees stability. Meanwhile, the wealthy aren't just staying ahead, they're pulling further away. They aren't working harder, they're working smarter. They understand how money moves, how to use the system to their advantage, and how to build wealth while everyone else is just trying to stay afloat. In today's video, we're breaking down exactly why this gap keeps widening and, more importantly, what you can do to avoid getting left behind. Let's get into it. Number 1. The upper class invests, the middle class works for money. The biggest difference between the middle class and the wealthy is how they make money. The middle class relies on wages. They work a job, receive a paycheck, and use that money to cover their expenses. If they want to earn more, they work longer hours, put in overtime, or switch jobs for a slightly better salary. But no matter how much they earn, their income is tied to the time they put in. If they stop working, the money stops coming in. The upper class plays a completely different game. They don't rely on salaries, instead they build and invest in assets, things that generate income without needing daily effort. While the middle class saves money in a bank account that barely grows, the wealthy put their money into stocks, real estate, and businesses that increase in value over time. This is why the rich get richer. Their money is constantly working for them, even when they're sleeping, traveling, or doing nothing at all. Think about it this way. If a middle-class worker earns $5,000 a month from their job, they have to keep working to maintain that income. But a wealthy individual who owns assets making $5,000 a month doesn't have to work at all. Their income continues to grow while they focus on making smarter financial moves. This difference in how money is earned is one of the biggest reasons the gap keeps widening. Number 2. Inflation erodes middle-class wealth, but the rich benefit. Inflation is one of the biggest reasons the middle class is struggling to keep up. Over the last few years, the cost of living has skyrocketed. Groceries, rent, gas, healthcare, everything is more expensive than it used to be. The problem is that wages haven't kept pace. Even though the average worker may be making more money than they did a decade ago, the value of that money has decreased. The wealthy don't fear inflation the same way. In fact, inflation often makes them richer. When prices rise, so do their investments. The real estate they own becomes more valuable. The stocks they invested in increase in price. Even if inflation is hurting the economy, their wealth keeps growing. For the middle class, inflation means their savings lose value every year. Keeping cash in a bank account doesn't grow wealth. It actually shrinks it. This is why the wealthy focus on assets, while the middle class continues to struggle with rising costs. If you're finding this information useful so far, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We break down financial topics like this all the time, helping you understand how money really works so you can get ahead. Now, let's keep going. Number 3. The cost of living is rising faster than wages. Housing costs have become one of the biggest barriers for the middle class. A few decades ago, buying a home was realistic for most families. Today, it's a struggle. Home prices have soared, but incomes haven't kept up. More people are being forced to rent, which keeps them stuck in a cycle where a large portion of their income goes toward housing instead of saving or investing. The wealthy, on the other hand, own properties. They're not paying rent, they're collecting it. As home prices rise, their real estate portfolios grow in value, increasing their wealth even more. The middle class, meanwhile, spends years paying off mortgages or rent, often with little financial gain in return. Education is another area where the cost gap has widened. A college degree used to guarantee a stable career and financial security. Today, many graduates leave school with tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt, but no guarantee of a high-paying job. The wealthy don't have this problem. They can afford to send their children to top schools without taking on debt, giving them an advantage right from the start. Healthcare costs are also a growing burden on the middle class. A single medical emergency can wipe out years of savings. While wealthy individuals can afford the best healthcare without financial stress, many middle-class families struggle with high insurance premiums, unexpected medical bills, and rising prescription costs. Number 4. Debt is a trap for the middle class, but a tool for the wealthy. Debt is another factor that separates the wealthy from the middle class. For most people, debt is a financial burden. Credit card balances, car loans, student loans, these are all things that drain money over time. Many people spend years paying off debts with high interest rates, leaving them with little room to build wealth. The wealthy use debt very differently. Instead of borrowing money to buy things that lose value, they use debt to acquire assets that generate income. A millionaire might take out a loan to buy a rental property, knowing that the rent will cover the loan payments and generate extra cash. They might use business loans to expand a profitable company, turning borrowed money into even more wealth. While the middle class is focused on paying off debt, the wealthy are using it strategically to grow their financial empire. This is another reason why the rich keep pulling ahead. The financial tools they use are completely different from those available to the average worker. Number 5. The tax system benefits the wealthy. The tax system is designed in a way that benefits investors over workers. Most middle-class income comes from salaries, which are heavily taxed. The wealthy, however, earn a large portion of their money from investments, which are taxed at much lower rates. In many cases, the ultra-rich pay a lower percentage in taxes than the average worker. They use legal strategies to minimize their tax burden, such as investing in assets with tax advantages, starting businesses that allow them to deduct expenses, and structuring their income in ways that reduce what they owe. Meanwhile, middle-class workers see a big chunk of their paycheck disappear in taxes, limiting how much they can save or invest. Number 6. The wealthy own the businesses. The middle class works for them. One of the biggest differences between the upper class and the middle class is ownership. The middle class works for businesses. They depend on a paycheck and have little control over their financial future. The wealthy own businesses. They generate income from the work of others, benefiting from the labor of employees while building even greater wealth. A company owner doesn't have to work long hours to get paid. They have employees generating revenue for them. Even if they step away from day-to-day operations, the business continues to make money. Meanwhile, a middle-class worker who stops working loses their entire source of income. Number 7. The wealthy control ownership, while the middle class consumes. One of the most overlooked reasons the gap keeps widening is the difference between ownership and consumption. The middle class spends most of their income on things that lose value: cars, electronics, luxury items, and unnecessary upgrades. They focus on looking successful rather than building financial stability. The wealthy prioritize ownership. They own stocks, businesses, real estate, and intellectual property, things that continue making money long after the initial investment. Instead of spending money to appear rich, they reinvest their profits to expand their wealth. That's why the gap isn't just about how much people earn, it's about how they use the money they already have. The system may not change overnight, but you don't have to stay trapped in it. The first step is to shift your mindset. Relying solely on a paycheck will always keep you limited. Building additional income streams through investing, side businesses, or freelancing can create more financial security. Owning assets instead of just saving money is key. Inflation destroys cash savings over time, but investments can grow and preserve wealth. Avoiding unnecessary debt and focusing on wealth-building strategies will help you get ahead. The gap between the upper and middle class may keep widening, but understanding how the system works is the first step to closing it for yourself. The sooner you start thinking like the wealthy, the better positioned you'll be for financial success.